this whole thing with Trump and Joe Rogan in the White House announcing that they are going to be expanding psychedelic research. Yeah, hair's down today. Psychedelic research for veterans. I think there's a couple of angles to this. Of course, I'm always happy to see further pushes towards legalization, but I still have a lot to say there. But let's just start off with the video of it, and then I'll get into my thoughts.
I sent President Trump some information. We have a gigantic opiate problem in this country, obviously. In 2024, more than 80,000 people died of overdoses. It's a horrible number. And there's more than 5 million.
You could tell that he's uncomfortable. And I think a lot of what happened here was Trump realized he was losing the podcast bros. And he was like, I got to get him in here. I got to give Rogan some drug stuff. And I gotta give him some UFO stuff.
Million people that are addicted to opiates right now in this country. With one dose of Ibogaine, more than 80% of people are free of that addiction. With 2 doses, it's more than 90%. I sent him that information. The text message came back, sounds great. Do you want FDA approval? Let's do it. It was literally that quick. These drugs are illegal not because they're harmful. They're illegal because of the 1970 Controlled Substances Act that was passed by the Richard Nixon administration. They did it to target the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement.
That's actually true. I talked about that in a video. It's crazy that he's saying that there. He's throwing his crowd a bone.
It's not because these drugs harm people. And for 56 years, we've lived under those terrible conditions. We're free of that now. We're free of that now. Thanks to all these people that we see next to me, and thanks to President Trump.
So yeah, that's that part of it. I think that some of it was definitely that kind of calculation. Oh, and as far as the people standing behind, I looked into it. They actually aren't pharma execs as I expected. They're actually advocates for Ibogaine. But I do think that pharmaceutical executives are going to be getting involved in this very soon. I had people tagging me in that because they know, of course, I've been advocating for psychedelics for many years and they know I hate Trump. So they were like, what's going on here? And I was like, I think it's a step in the right direction and I'm happy to see it. And at the same time, we have been headed in this direction. There are many cities and across the country where it's fairly legal. There are shops in Washington, D.C., where you could just walk in and buy DMT vapes and mushrooms and stuff. And I know it's definitely like that in Denver. We've definitely been going in this direction. And like I said, I think that he was trying to get the podcast bros back on his side. And I also think that it still comes at a major cost, you know what I mean? Like my whole thing with advocating for the legalization of drugs was always to keep people out of prison because people were being put into prison unjustly. And now we have this situation with Trump where tens of thousands of people are being imprisoned just because of where they moved from. And yeah, like I'm super happy that a few less hippies will probably be thrown in a cage. Of course, that makes me very happy. Tens of thousands of people are being thrown in a cage for pretty much nothing by the same guy. So it's definitely hard to celebrate. Of course, I celebrate the thing happening because it is not just Joe Rogan and Trump that did this. Is many years and decades of people advocating for this and civil disobedience and going to parties and experimenting with stuff and then talking about it online later. That whole culture has brought us to where we are now. So I don't think, yes, that is Dr. Oz. I don't think that we should really give them all that credit and allow them to take the credit away from the lineage of people who have done incredible work in this field to bring us to this point. And this is just a small step along the way as well. So it is, see what I had some, oh yeah. And then there is another angle to it. There's the money angle too, because there's this whole thing with all of these pharmaceutical companies now that they know that psychedelics are going to be legalized eventually, they're rushing into it, trying to do everything they can to monopolize certain parts of it or patent drugs based on certain compounds that they can control and control the therapy of. So there's definitely a lot going on there. You see what happened with the weed industry. It's not much different. And now we have the weed industry as an example. So now there's a ton of people who are looking for the next big thing. And Peter Thiel is actually one of them. He is heavily invested in psychedelics. Let me pull up this article that I just shared in chat before the stream. Yeah. This article's from 4 or 5 years ago. Is this Peter Thiel backed startup trying to monopolize the astral plane? This is called Compass Pathways. And this talks about how, like, he is using his money to try to influence the development of the psychedelic medical industry, the medical side of it. And there's just a lot of weird shit going on there. There's a video that was put out by this group called Symposia. I think they were originally formed in Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken, unless it was just a Baltimore chapter that I was familiar with. But I've had some interactions with these people over the years. This is a short video of a 1 hour thing that they did. But I believe that this is their theory and a lot of what they're working towards. Let's see.
In a vacuum, a lot of this stuff seems innocuous, but this isn't happening in a vacuum. This is being signed on Donald Trump's desk.
This administration is 100% pay to play. That's who they are.
When you are allowing people like the Jervits and Peter Thiel to be controlling both the acceptable narratives within LLM training models and also the context for psychedelic therapy, you're creating a system where people can be steered in certain directions that are in line with elite interests.
Yeah, see, in 2018, Compass also managed to get a secure pivotal breakthrough therapy designation from the FDA. So, a category that fast tracks federal review of drugs intended to treat a serious condition. So, 2018, that was Trump's first administration. So, the ball's kind of already been rolling on this. Teal invested another 12 million this past November in Atia Life Sciences, a Berlin-based startup that has also developed psychedelic mental health treatments. I know Compass Pathways is the really big one that he was involved in, but I guarantee you one of these groups that's connected to one of these billionaires that Trump is involved with is going to get the government contract for the Ibogaine treatment. I'm sure of it, whether it's for the research or whatever. And again, I'm happy to see psychedelic research go further. I'm happy to see the normalization of this stuff, but it's also important to recognize where it's all like what the whole purpose of it is. Somebody made this a long time ago. It's like blotter art, I think. It's got Trump, Putin, and Kim Jong Un like going on this psychedelic journey here, and you see they're like puking in these buckets after drinking the ayahuasca, and Trump's here smoking on a pipe and shit. I immediately thought of this when I was making the other meme, but unfortunately, like this, it's I couldn't put this in a thumbnail because it's too thin. It's like long ways or whatever. But that shit's funny. That's like what that I love that.